I'll just do a little reading of the opening chapter. He slowly saw how her eyes began to glow, light, bright and human blue. He watched as she smiled, licking the blood from her lips. He felt her power grow, but he didn't understand. She wore a choker engraved with magic binding spells. He specifically made for Gwenedin, to bind her with all of her magical gifts, the magical gifts he gave her. He watched on, horrified, as she slowly sat up with her back straight. With a flick of her wrist, she broke the spell that held her arms outstretched. She rolled her shoulders, relieving the pressure, and continued to stare into Cyril's dumbfounded face. "How are you doing this?" he asked, flabbergasted. She took hold of the choker and threw it to the floor. Cyril slowly stepped back away from her, readying himself for a fight. He knew what she was capable of, hence why he had forced her to wear the choker. You didn't check to see if it was secure. Gwenedin rubbed her neck, and the skin was blistered and raw from where it sat on her neck for so many years. He looked at her, panic-stricken. He felt the energy increase like electric static in the air. He knew what was coming. He knew then precisely why she endured the lashings, even as she had access to her powers. He knew why she smiled, even as the agonizing pain must have been the only sense she felt. Gwenedin raised her arms, her palms facing the ceiling as her arms raised. So did the blood from the floor, levitating, defying gravity. Cyril surrounded himself in a circular misty force, preventing any magic from anyone else to penetrate it and cause him harm. He watched her, wary, feeling as she called upon the dark. They heard them before they saw them, their hot laboured breath, the creaking movements, their long sharp claws dragging across the stone floor. Both mercenaries screamed and shouted as they saw the red glowing eyes from the shadows. "What is that?" one shouted. Cyril watched on, amazed at her strength, how she conjured so quickly. He remembered when it would give her a nosebleed to call upon just one demon, but now he saw 20 stood behind her, crawling and licking their lipless mouths as they stared at the two mercenaries. Eerily slow, they moved from the shadows, crawling towards the two men. Both men stood still, too terrified to run. The demon's long, skinny limbs moved every inch closer to them. Meanwhile, Gwenedin's gaze did not move once removed from Cyril. She stared at him with insidious intent. "Kill them," she said softly. "Yes, mistress," her demons answered all at once, almost in one voice. Their eyes widened in excitement. Both men screamed, running past her, but she saw from the corners of her eyes as they stopped in mid-flight. Two demons slid from each of the men's shadows and towered over them, opening their mouths impossibly wide. Both at the same time, they bit down on the mercenaries' necks, swallowing their heads entirely in one bite. Both bodies fell to the floor, spraying blood from their headless necks. Cyril watched on, horrified at his creation. He had seen her do many terrible things, but he had never been so close to the violence before, to smell the blood, to feel the fear. Gwenedin's demons quickly turned their sights onto Cyril. "No," she said firmly, "you will not kill him." Gwenedin held out her hands as the blood floated in a long string to her hand and coiled around her forearm. She used the blood-like magic whips, hitting at his magical shield. The spell was holding, but it was weakening. For the first time since giving her this gift, he was frightened she was stronger than him. That's a little bit of it there. I don't know how that sounded out of context, but it's quite a violent opening chapter, so I didn't want to get too much of the gore in.
I can understand that. Sometimes at readings, like, it can make people uncomfortable, right, to like jump in. One time I did a reading, it was for my graduate school, where I talked about a girl's first period, and the men were uncomfortable. But thank you. That was beautiful. You read very beautifully. Thank you so much. We do have a question in the chat. Maddie asks, how many books of this have you written so far?
I have written, well, I'm currently writing the 6th book, but 3 are published at the minute, with a 4th coming out in September.
Wow, very cool. How long have you been writing them?
These ones I started only a couple of years ago, so they've been coming out quite quickly.
That's prolific. I take forever to do everything. That's amazing. How many series have you written?
This is the first one. I've been writing for years, since I was about 13, but it's only now that I thought, oh, bugger it, I'll publish and see how it goes. So.
Nice. Like, okay, so how long have you been publishing them?
This is, when did it come? Last year was the first 2 books came out.
Oh, wow, very cool. Nice. Okay, so Ali asked, what is the process like for planning that kind of multiple book project?
I don't really have a process, to be honest. I just write them. I just I hear a lot of people do like bullet points and plan out the storyline and things like that, but no, they just come out of me.
So how do you know, like, it's going to be 7 books? Do you think it might change, or like it could go a little bit further, or do you have the ending in mind for this one?
Well, it was meant to finish with 6, but sort of because fans have said that they want more, and I can write more, so it's now turned into 7. But 7 is, I don't know, it needs to be 8. I don't like the series ending on 7, but we'll see.
I mean, 7's a lucky number, right? It's the child number. Yeah, lucky number 7. So that could be good. Interesting. Now, so you're free publishing these?
Yeah.
What's that process kind of like?
Well, I do it all via Amazon's publishing thing. It's all really easy. Pretty much anybody could do it. So it's it's just hopefully to get my name out there. So hopefully later on another publisher will pick me up, and
it's good to build a fan base, I think. How are you building your fan base? How's that going for you?
Oh God. Stressful, very stressful. It's getting easier the more the word's getting out there. So like, someone will read it and then they tell someone else, and that's a lot easier. But being on all the social medias all at once, talking to people, constantly bringing out content, because I'm drawing all the time, the characters and things like that. And
oh, you draw too?
Yes.
Would you like to show us some of your drawings? I could make you a co-host.
I don't know how to do that.
Oh, you don't? Like, do you have them on your computer?
Yes, I should do somewhere.
Oh my God, my computer is a mess right now. I need to organize my digital space, but I could make you a co-host and you could screen share and pull them up if you want. You don't have to.
Right.
Okay, cool.
No, I can see if I can find some. They're on here somewhere.
You can look while we talk a little bit. I mean, I'm Stacey Reynolds would be I'm gonna be uploading the videos of like all the sessions. She's a good person to kind of look at because she did the self-publishing route a lot through Amazon and others, and she eventually got picked up for like an audio book series with a publisher. It's too bad Amy's not here. She's into she wants to kind of look into that, and Tori. Tori is gonna get published with Atmosphere, but like it's a lot of grassroots, right? Grassroots kids out there. And always be producing content. I had an interview with this woman. She does this podcast, this audio drama called Nocturne Alley, and she's been producing it for like 10, 15 years. And she's like, you just have to constantly be putting stuff out. And I'm like, that's so stressful. That kind of time.
Yeah, well, I don't have a life really. I go to work and then I come back, and then either I'm writing, editing, creating content, talking to people. So it's just pretty much the book is my life.
Yeah, I feel that ever since I started these presses. I don't really have a social life outside of, say, doing things like this.
Yeah.
It's okay. I like it.
I
Does anybody else
still get to talk to people.
right? Right? And I mean, it's about the things I love, so that's good. But it's all like work. It's hard being like an indie author or an indie anything.
Oh, definitely.
God. Do you ever do like live readings in the UK, or has it all been kind of like digital?
I've been doing via YouTube. So yeah, that's been another way of getting people involved in it. And because I know a lot of people don't want to buy an indie author's book because nobody knows of them and they've only got a few reviews. So it's quite a nice way for people to listen to it and go, actually, that sounds quite interesting. And then, yeah, pick up the book that way. But
reviews are so important.
Oh God, yes.
Right? I always try to like, well, I've been trying to review people's work now on my website, but like just pop a review in the Goodreads, guys. Come on. It's so helpful. That's cool. You should shoot your YouTube into the chat. I'll put that in the brochure. I'm gonna do like
right, okay.
Yeah, people
this is so technical.
Oh my God, technology is really hard to manage.
I'm not used to it.
Well, I'm getting okay. Kind of. We got Zoom bombed the first night. This is why we had to register.
Oh yes, I saw that. Oh
yeah.
Christ.
Someone went to share their screen and then like ghostly dicks just started appearing all over the place. Interesting. I didn't know they could do that.
No, that's quite scary, really.
Yeah. So what kind of stuff do you put out on the YouTube? Do you do readings? Like
well, because it's all sort of history and archaeology based, I kind of do a lot of that as well. No, my video's gonna start playing. No, there we go. Yeah, so Brocks are like a really big thing in the books, and not a lot of people know about them. So yeah, I went around the Highlands visiting them and doing videos about them, things like that.
Oh, that sounds super cool. Maddie did ask, what kind of research do you do for the books?
Well, I'm an archaeologist anyway, so I know a lot of this stuff, but there's been a lot of black holes of research because I've learned 5 different languages for the books. So
what languages?
That's been quite tiring. Gaelic, both Scottish and Irish Gaelic, Farsi, Old English, and something else that escapes me. I'm sure there's another one there.
I know a little bit of Old English. I studied Old English.
Right.
So like, I don't know if I can pronounce it. Wagilum Gates. I read Beowulf in like Old English and had to translate it.
You'll probably pronounce it better than I could. I just write it.
Oh, I mean, that's super cool though. Old English is a really fun language to learn. And I mean, on that note of like Beowulf, like then I got queried by this queer author who's writing a queer version of Beowulf called Gaelwolf. It's very exciting.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Brilliant.
That's very cool. I mean, God, 5 languages. And like how
I didn't mean to. It just kind of happened. But originally it's only meant to be the Farsi. But yeah, and then it tumbleweed. But the Old English is all the spell language. So obviously that's quite steeped in the book a lot. But yeah.
That's very Tolkien-esque. That's cool. I love that. Maddie asked, how do you balance, say, using the research like and like incorporating plot? Like I do know a couple of authors I talk to who write historical kind of stuff. They struggle with like, say, info dumping research, right? How do you kind of incorporate that?
Well, the thing is, because it's a fantasy, I don't really have to stay strict to what basically it's more of an influence of everything I've read and researched and everything. So I can put my own spin on things. So that makes things a lot easier.
Right. That is one of the reasons I like working in genre, is because if something, you can just lie, right? You can just kind of, you don't have to. Nice. Does anybody else have a question really quick? Do you want to pull up your screen if you found your
Yeah,
drive?
sure.
So at the
How do I
bottom,
do?
if you kind of
Right.
move your mouse around, there will be a bottom thing that shows up that says like mute, stop video, security, participants, and then share screen. And you can click that. It'll pull up a little menu, and you can select which pane you want to show us, so that like you don't have to show us your personals. I've accidentally done that in classes with students.
Oh, really? Oh, Christ. That's terrifying.
Yeah, they'll see all my weird emails.
Not that I've got anything going on, but so this is quite a recent one. But this is the two main characters, so Gwendolen and Finn. I don't know if I can really say too much about Gwendolen, really, but she's kind of been taken by a mage and forced to use dark magic. But there's more in her past that obviously you find out later on through the books. And Finn is a disgraced Nimrod, which in the level of like kings, knights and things like that, you have another level above a knight, which is a Nimrod. And they basically fight monsters. So if you're kind of like into Witcher, it's sort of that sort of similar thing.
I love Witcher. Very cool. In the chat, we have a question of like, what program do you use to draw these?
Whiteboard. I'm not very advanced again on anything technological, so yeah, whiteboard is just the easiest thing.
Really?
You don't have too many brushes and you don't have to worry about things like that. But
so like, are you using the mouse to draw it, or do you have like a tablet?
oh, I have a pen.
Yeah. Okay, I have a pen too. Because drawing with the mouse is so difficult. Right?
Oh god, yeah. I think I've only ever done it a couple of times, but yeah, wouldn't recommend it.
Do you put these illustrations in the book?
A couple of them at the beginning of the book. Yeah, so like on. Oh no, of course you can see. You got the map. There we go.
Oh,
So
that's cool.
The map of the Isles.
That is very Tolkien. Neat. And so like you publish it on the web. You also do make physical books?
Yes, yeah.
Ah, you got to charge for those, right? Though.
Oh yeah. Well, I don't really earn any money from any of this.
I know.
It's literally just a passionate thing. So I think I only get like 50p. I don't know what the equivalent is in America.
I think it's like maybe 25. I don't know. I did know once upon a time. I got to visit London and Edinburgh, but it's been a while. Oh, that's super cool. 50p. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, like I'm seeing running these things, doing these kind of things that usually cost the artist money, right, or the press money, rather than makes you any money. It's just all about the love. Nice.
Well, when you're passionate about something, it's worthwhile.
So you're an archaeologist? Are you a teacher, or what do you do in terms of like archaeology work?
I dig out in the field, so like a real archaeologist person.
Oh my god.
So we go to excavations and just excavate whatever needs digging up, really. At the moment I'm on a medieval industrial kind of site where they're making oh god, it'll come to me in a minute. Clay tiles for roofs.
That's so cool. What's the coolest thing you've ever found? Have you ever found anything like wow?
Yeah, it's probably when I was working in London. So obviously there's such a massive history in London. It's been occupied since before the Roman period. So yeah, the levels of archaeology is amazing. But I got to dig on the Temple of Mithras, and that is pretty much how it would have looked back in the day, really, back in the Roman period. We had all walkways. Obviously, you couldn't walk on them now because they're waterlogged and you just sink through. But you could see all the wicker walkways and loads of shoes, loads and loads of leather shoes, just Like they fell off people's feet and then they just left them. But
That's so fun. Free shoes, free ancient shoes. So, like, you've been writing since you were 13. Were you always kind of like into fantasy?
No, this is quite recent, to be honest. I've kind of always liked Tolkien, but there was never, I don't know, I didn't know anybody that liked fantasy, and I just never really got into it as much as, like, you got Game of Thrones and all that now, so it's really quite easily accessible. But yeah, I don't know really. Just probably about 5 years ago, I started getting into fantasy. But
So, yeah, because I was wondering, like, did the fantasy love inspire you to be an archaeologist, or did the archaeology potentially maybe have to do with you falling in love with fantasy? Because there's something.
No, wanted to become an archaeologist was completely and utterly Tomb Raider. How they've lied to me, it's nothing like that.
Well, I mean, that's considering the newest Tomb Raider game, or at least the last one I heard about, because I kind of tapped out at that point. That might be good, right? Because terrible things happen in that game to Laura. Poor Laura.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm relieved for you that archaeology is not like Tomb Raider.
Well, we've always got Indiana Jones. Although, saying that, that series is going an interesting route, but
Hey, very cool. I could see you kind of as like a Tomb Raider type, like a Laura type. That's cool. Nice. So what do you think kind of sparked the interest in fantasy then, like these last like 5 years?
It's probably Witcher, to be honest. I started, well, things were happening in my own life, and I really got into Witcher 3, and I don't know, I just completely lost myself to it. And obviously then I found out about the books, and then read all the books within like 5 minutes. And just like, well, what other fantasy is out there? And I just went looking, and I don't know, I just thought there's, as much as all the fantasy that I've read I've enjoyed, I want it to go a different route, and I haven't read anything in a certain route which I've taken my books. So I think that's what sort of spiraled it on for me to start writing fantasy.
Very cool. I mean, like, so what kind of route are you taking? How are you like kind of departing from the typical fantasy?
Well, a lot of fantasy is very political. I always struggle with politics. It's all, obviously you need politics in it anyway, but I feel it 99% I've read, it's really, that's the basics of it. And even if you miss out on a page of whatever they've been talking about, you're lost. So obviously I do have politics in mind, but it's a lot less. It's a lot more digestible.
I see.
And I just wanted to make fantasy more accessible, really, because obviously in a lot of fantasy books, they've all got really weird names and you can't pronounce them and you forget who's who because there's so many characters. And yeah, just something that's really easy to read that anybody can get into, really, and something that's a lot darker as well, because I know there's dark fantasy out there, but I must admit I need to go and look at it a bit more, but I didn't want it to be influenced in my writing, so I thought I'll wait until I finish my book and then I'll go out there and read more dark fantasy.
Yeah, I mean, it is good kind of like to read those forms and like get a sense of what the genre is doing, but it is also nice to start with a clean palette sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Interesting. I mean, like I do agree that, well, a lot of fantasy, especially older fantasy, has often been written in a complicated way, almost like nerd culture used to want to not be accessible.
Yeah.
Like which is changing now. I think a lot of times where you'll see the accessibility beginning right now is in YA. That's a spooky man.
Oh, this is one of Gwen's demons.
I love it. That's very spooky. Very cool. And I mean, like, I'm all for making things more accessible. I think that's a great goal. I mean, I think Terry Pratchett, he was super accessible to me, but he's super political, right? I mean, fantasy is a great way to make like commentary about the real world. But it also can just be, and this is something I think we need to remember, literature could just be for entertainment, right? You could just have a good time, just want to relax. Nice. Does anybody else have any questions? Take a look at the chat. Everybody good?
Yeah. Wait, I want to ask a question.
Yeah, sure.
How much does your archaeology help your how much do you think your knowledge of archaeology helps with your writing?
Well, especially with this type of book, immensely. Because God knows how much I know a lot about like Anglo-Saxon Britain. It's one of my passions. But to start from complete basics, not knowing anything, it's got to be very difficult. I don't even know where you would start, to be honest. So yeah, being an archaeologist has greatly helped.
No, that sounds so cool. So do you try to make stuff a lot more like feel like it would be more immersive, accurately of the time period because of that?
Not really, to be honest, because even though it's kind of set in Anglo-Saxon Britain, the different regions all have their own sort of time period. So like what is now England would be more like 1400s. The way I've written it, their technology, the food they're eating, things like that. Whereas what is now Scotland in the book is more like Iron Age. So they're living in
like sword
round houses and things like that with thatched roofing and bits. So yeah, because it's fantasy, it's a massive mishmash.
Whoa,
it sounds
that's
like
so cool.
Kind of steampunky a little bit.
A little bit,
like where
yeah.
they like blend different technologies and eras. That sounds super fun. Allie did ask, like, how long did it take you to learn all those languages?
Well, I'm not fluent in any of them. But it's taken me about 2 years to know the basics of all 5 languages. But yeah, no, I couldn't sit there and have a conversation with someone that's fluent. No way.
Yeah, I could. It's fun to kind of take those bits and pieces though and learn through your creative writing, right? It's such a good opportunity. Anybody else have any questions? Thank you so much for joining us. This was super fun.
Thank you for having me.